Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
My name is Chuck C., and I'm an alcoholic. Hi. That was too quick. I'm not ready. What's the matter with you people? Couldn't you sleep this morning? How beautiful a sight this is. You can't believe it. You don't know how pretty you are, sitting out there. I came up here for one purpose, and one purpose only. And that is to tell you I love you. Sure love you people. It's been my happy privilege to spend 35 years and 8 months with you. Without a drink or a sedating or tranquilizing pill of any kind. And for a tongue-chewing, babbling idiot drunk, that ain't bad. Old Norm A. said that might not impress you a bit, but it impresses the hell out of me. And it sure does. And I can tell you without fear of successful contradiction, the last year I've been with you was the best year I've ever spent with you. To my certain knowledge, this thing gets better for 35 years and 8 months. And I suspect that it's that way forever. I have the feeling that as if and when you and I finally take step number 3, we enter a new dimension of life. An infinite Father, God, an infinite child, you and me, and an infinite journey. I think that's the way it is. I think that forever this thing will get better, because we're looking at infinity. It's a fantastic change in my life. I have had the happy privilege of spending my entire time with you without one conscious desire for a drink. Now, I've been called a liar with some, descriptive adjectives in front of it on many occasions for saying that I haven't had a conscious desire to drink. But I don't know what white-knuckled sobriety is. I don't know, because from my first meeting until now, I've never had a conscious desire for a drink. And I think it's because I got here on time. I don't believe I could have gotten here in any other way than I got here. I'm certain that had I had to surrender consciously the first time, I would have died without coming to this program. In the first 43 years of my life, I never one time admitted defeat. Not one time. And just for the fun of it, nothing bad was ever my fault in the first 43 years of my life. I never even got drunk when it was my fault. It was your fault. If you stupid, mean people had have lived like I knew you should, and like I told you how, I wouldn't have had to get drunk at you, but you wouldn't do it. My good wife was a beautiful, beautiful reason for getting drunk. She married me too young anyway. We've been married for 56 years. And that's indecent in California, I'll tell you that. But as good a reason for getting drunk as she was, her mother was 10 times better. Her mother had only one kid, and I was married to her. And she was living with us. And she had a grandstand seat watching me crucify her only daughter. And she didn't like me very good. And I didn't like her that good. If she hadn't been living with us, I wouldn't have had to get drunk. So it was all her fault. But before I go any further, I wish I could tell you all this morning what this program did for that old biddy. She lived with us 5 years after I got sober, and it was remarkable, the change in her. She used to just embarrass me to death because she wouldn't believe that I'd had any help. She just wouldn't believe that I had any help. She wouldn't believe that I got any help from you or from God. She'd put her arms around me and she'd say, "Oh, son, I knew you had it in you." Oh, God, she just embarrassed me to death. I'd start blushing at my blue shoe tops, and it'd go right through my hair. And she never would believe that I'd gotten any help from any of it. Conditions, circumstances. Nothing bad ever happened to me that was my fault for 43 years. It was, again, your fault, and conditions and circumstances. It was the so-called civilization that we live in. You know, it's backwards. And I tried hard to fix that, but I couldn't. I didn't make it. Still backwards. But it's all changed. This morning I can stand here and tell you that regardless of what happens to me, there is no place that I can point the finger. No place. If there's anything wrong with me, there's no place I can place blame. Because I don't believe in a God of judgment. Many of you do, and it's all right with me, but I don't. I don't believe in a God of judgment. I believe in a God of love and a great law of justice without judgment. We reap what we sow. We reap what we sow. And if I'm getting back slop, I have to change what I'm pouring in. I can't blame my sponsor if there's anything wrong with me, because I've never had a sponsor. When I got here, I didn't know what a sponsor was. And when I found out what a sponsor was, I didn't think I was entitled to that much consideration from anybody. So I couldn't ask anybody to be my sponsor. And when I might have asked somebody to be my sponsor, I already had 500 and a God of my very own. So I've never had a sponsor. But all of you are my sponsor, every one of you. The entire human race is my sponsor. Some of them teaching me what to do, and some of them teaching me what not to do. And who says the ones that teach me what not to do aren't just as much a sponsor as the ones that teach me what to do? So there's no place for me to point the finger anymore. Can't even blame my wife, because I've lived long enough to know that nothing outside my own skin has any power over me that I don't give it. Nothing outside my own skin has any power over me that I don't give it. So if there's something wrong with me, I have to come to me. And I say to me, wait a minute, big boy. What have you allowed to get important enough to get between you and your program and your God? And whatever it is has to go. And many, many times I don't want it to go. I want to keep it. Because sometimes it's a beautiful blonde. 95 pounds, and the pounds are where they belong. And I don't want to get rid of it, but it has to go. Because anything that gets between me and my program and my God, and I'm in left field again. And I can't live in left field. I was out there 43 years. And so I have to get rid of it, whatever it is. There's a verse in another book that I used to read before I got here that says, "Thou shalt have no other God before me." So that means that anything that gets between me and my program and my God has to go. Now, if I can't pinpoint what it is that is bothering me, it don't make any difference. Because I talk to my God all the time. I talk about the good things and the bad things. I have everything I talk over with him. And if I can't pinpoint what it is that's bothering me, I just say to my own God, I say, look, I feel like hell. And I can't pinpoint it. I don't know what's causing it, but it don't make any difference because I'm giving it to you. It's your problem now. Sure, thank you. And I go about my business, and it goes away. I'm quite sure that anything that I can give up, he'll take. And it don't make any difference what it is. It's a fabulous way to live. I have a chap that calls me his sponsor. And I have come to believe that he had a reason for calling me a sponsor. His name is, I've forgotten it almost. Clancy I think it is. When Sandy Koufax was pitching for the Dodgers, they got into the World Series. And Clancy and Luann came clear across town, my plant, which was at 40th and Alameda, to bring me a couple of tickets for the World Series, which they gave me. And after I had accepted them, Clancy says, Chuck, he says, will you be my sponsor? And I wasn't going to give him back those 2 World Series tickets. So I told him, I said, I never sponsor anybody. But I'll give you everything I've got, any time that I can. I'll give you whatever I've got, but I'll never think of you as my baby or anything like that. Because I don't want to think of that I'm responsible for anybody else's sobriety when I couldn't get sober myself. So he's called me a sponsor from that time to this. And I think that he does so he can tell me what to do. He's been trying to make me wear a jacket and a tie every time I talk. He fights me about that, and I'm not going to do it. I don't think I talk any better with a jacket and a tie on. In the first place, I never listen to what they say. I say what I listen to. And I never know what's going to come out. And I don't care. I don't care. And I'm not particularly attempting to impress you. I've got a suit and a tie. I put it on when I want to, and when I don't, I don't. And I don't think I'm a bit more sober in a suit of clothes than I am with an open front shirt. Now, he says that you're supposed to do that because of the new people. Well, most of the new people haven't even got a coat and a tie. I feel more a part of without it. So we have a lot of fun about that. I am convinced that our society is not a self-improvement society. Many of our younger people, and some of the older ones, I guess, seem to think this is a self-improvement society. They think a great deal about their feelings and what's going on in their lives, and particularly they seem to think that God is responsible for a lot of the bad things that happen to him. For instance, there is a great seeming necessity amongst many of our people to think that their meaningful relationships are brought about by God. If you get some of the telephone calls that I get, you'd be surprised. They call me and they're mad at God because he took away their meaningful relationship. And 5 days later they call me up and they're double mad at him because he hadn't sent a replacement. When I was younger, that is quite a lot younger, we called that shacking up. And we tried our damnedest to keep God from doing anything about it. So I can't get used to the thinking that God is a pimp. And I wonder sometimes how long we have to be around this society before we discover that love includes possession, but not the necessity to possess. The necessity to possess is ego. I want, I don't want, I like, I don't like, I. The necessity to possess, or the obsessions that are born of the human ego, it seems has to go with the boards before we can really get comfortable in this society about it. I am convinced that the only roadblock between me and you and me and my very own God is the human ego. The obsessions of the mind that are the children of the human ego. And I'm just as convinced of the impossibility, the divine impossibility, if you will, of satisfying the human ego as I am that I'm standing here this morning. Because it's all relative. It's all relative. One of the greatest freedoms I have in life today, I have a pretty nice home on a hill in Laguna Beach that was made possible by people like you. And I have one of the most beautiful views that anybody ever looked at. I look out my window down on the little town of Laguna and Pacific Ocean, Catalina Island. Clear day, I can see to China. And to stand there and look out my window and have everything in me announce there's that entire Pacific Ocean was bourbon whiskey, it wouldn't be enough to satisfy my obsession of drinking. This is one of the greatest freedoms on earth to me. I don't have to think about it. My toenails and my hair announce that if that whole thing was bourbon, it wouldn't be enough. And going back 35 years, 36, 37, 40, I believe that had it been necessary, on many occasions I would have killed for whiskey. And now to have everything in me know that if the whole Pacific Ocean was bourbon, it wouldn't be enough. What a freedom it is. It's worth everything that I've done in this society, just that alone. You see, if I would willfully take one thimbleful of whiskey this morning, I would be flat on my back in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, drinking the clock around. That's the way it is with me. There is no way that I could willfully take a drink or any sedation without that happening to me, because it did it every time. Every time. I was a periodic for 11 years before I got here. And I was physically as dry between every two drunks in that 11 years as I am now. And for some reason or another, I was able, clear up until the last drunk, to convince myself that I'd learned my lesson. The next time it's going to be different. The next time it's going to be different. I've learned my lesson. And it was different, all right. It was worse, just like it always was, you know. But up until my last drunk, I knew that I was going to be all right now. You see, the obsessions of the mind, the human ego is conscious separation. Me against the world. Me against you. Me against the system. I walked alone for 43 years, consciously separated, even from my own family. I never did feel a part of anything until I became sober with people like you. And that disappeared. And it's a fantastic thing. Because in my way of thinking, it's divinely impossible to satisfy the human ego. Now, I've already told you about liquor. Suppose my obsession had been, for instance, money instead of whiskey. It's divinely impossible to satisfy an obsession for money. Because if you haven't got 2 coppers to rub together, $5 is a fortune. If you got $5, you're broke. You know? And it's that way clear up the ladder, clear up the top to the top. I had a client for many years when I was in the business world. He was a Syrian. He'd gone from 1 head of lettuce to 35 million bucks. And he used to say to me, Charlie, how can I be like you? And I'd say, Eddie, you can't. And he'd say, why in the hell can't I? And I'd say, Eddie, who needs God when he's got 35 million bucks? You can buy everything you want, including women. And you do. So, Eddie, you go ahead and make yourself $150 million. And you will if you live, because everything you touch turns to money. So go ahead and make yourself $150 million. And by that time, you will have found out that it can't do for you what you have to have done right here. And then you come to me and say, Charlie, how can I be like you? And I'll tell you, and you can do it. And he'd say, well, talk to me about it anyway. And we'd drive all over the state of Arizona talking about what we talked about this morning. But Eddie never got his 150. He got his head so full of many things that it exploded, and we had to bury him. But it's impossible to get enough money to satisfy an obsession to drink. And to satisfy an obsession for money. Suppose my obsession had been for power. Impossible. All of us here went through Watergate. Biggest power struggle that this country's ever known. And everybody here and every place else was harmed by Watergate. There wasn't a winner in the whole thing. It's totally impossible to satisfy an obsession for power. And supposing that my obsession had been for women, as if it weren't. And suppose I'd have been the greatest Lothario of all time, and every chick I took out after I caught, but one. Now, in my age, that'd be quite an army, wouldn't it? Would that army satisfy me? This one that I can't get kills me. You see? It's impossible to satisfy the human ego. So if you can't beat him, join him. If you can't beat him, join him. And that's what our first 9 steps of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is all about. The first 9 steps are there to surrender us. Our beloved Bill said it something like this. He says, if we've been painstaking in the above, that was the first 9 steps, we discover that we have been relieved of the bondage of self, which is the human ego. And that's the purpose, the first 9 steps. And I can't understand how we, as a society, can get the idea that we can do these things. You know? I had a lot of time before I got here to self-improve. I had a lot of time. And I self-improved myself right through the gates of insanity and death. At the ripe old age of 43, I was a failure as a husband, a father, a businessman, man, and drunk. And that's all the departments I had. If I'd had any more departments, I'd have failed in them too. So I haven't any reason to believe that I'm so hot on my own. The easiest thing I can say to you this morning is, of myself, I'm not worth the powder to blow me to hell. And I don't even figure that that is running myself down. It's the truth. I failed in every department of life. And I want to tell you how I got started on this new road. On the Friday before Christmas, 1945, I went down to the office, and I was feeling pretty good because this was Friday before Christmas, and of course New Year's was coming along, and it's a time when you can get by with a little more drinking than ordinarily. And I thought I had some good times coming up. And I went down to the office and I found a note to see the boss. And I didn't want to see him. I knew what he looked like. And I also knew what he wanted to see me about. He was going to can me, that's what he was going to do. And I knew it because I knew I had it coming. But he said, see me, and I had to see him. So I went in. And instead of shooting me, as he had every right to do, he started talking, which was a good sign. And he said something like this. He says, Charlie, you've had a lot of trouble this year. Never mentioned booze. But he knew that I knew what he was talking about when he said trouble. And being a non-alcoholic, he had it all figured out. He says, I think I know your problem. I think it's because of the pressure you're under. Now, says he, I have decided to take a little of the pressure off of it. And maybe next year you won't have so much pressure and you won't have so much trouble. And so, again, instead of shooting me, he gave me $3,000 for a Christmas present. The Friday before Christmas, 1945, to take the pressure off of me. And if you don't think he took the pressure off of me, you're nuts. There's one thing that's worse for an alkie than bad fortune, and that's good fortune. So I got drunk on the way home. Now, if I could remember the first drink, or a middle drink, or the last drink that happened in that 4 weeks period, I am certain that I'm smart enough to come up with a reason to take credit for the last 35 years of my life. But I can't remember nothing. I remember the Friday before Christmas, and I remember coming to sometime after the middle of January, 1946. And nothing in between. Now, my wife was talking to you right now. She would tell you that I destroyed 7 quarts of whiskey every 3 days in that entire period. And I can't even quarrel with her about it because I wasn't there. And furthermore, I don't think 7 quarts is too much for 3 days. If you only do it, say, 15 days. But if you do it 30 days or something like that, it's either too much or just enough. And in my case, I guess it was just enough. Because I came to with the clearest head I've ever known in my entire lifetime. And I saw me with nothing between me and me. All the excuses had burned out, and all the I wants had burned out. And I could see me with nothing between me and me. And I knew that I'd lost the battle of life. It was the first time in 43 years that I'd ever admitted defeat. But this morning I knew that I'd lost the battle of life. I didn't know why, because I knew nothing of alcoholism. I knew all about the inside of jails. I knew an awful lot about the DTs and the convulsions and very messy beds and all that sort of thing. But I knew nothing of alcoholism. But I knew I'd lost the battle of life. I knew why my good wife, after 20 years, was divorcing me. And I knew that she should have done it 10 years before. I knew why our kids wouldn't even come home when I was around. And I knew why that same boss man had sent word to the house that if I ever stepped foot in the plant again, he was going to throw me through the window. And the window that he had picked out for that purpose don't open. It's plate glass. I knew that everything dear to me in life was gone and should be gone, and that I was not entitled to have it back. And I also accepted death, because nobody in my condition could live very long. But I didn't want to die with the record. In all my drinking career, I never got to the point where I didn't love my wife and my kids. I always loved them. And many, many occasions in my drinking, bad drinking time, I tried to sell myself on the idea that I didn't love them. Because loving them, it gave them the right to hurt me, you know. And I'd been hurt too much, and I'd try my darndest to sell myself the bill of goods that I didn't love them. But I never made it. And I loved them the morning I came to. And I had one piece of unfinished business that I must try to dispatch before I died. I had to be sober until I died, to not drink until I died, because I had to use the time to try to rub out as much of the record as I could before I left. I didn't want my wife and my kids to remember me as nothing but a tongue-chewing, babbling idiot drunk. And out of the no place came the thought that I had read Jack Alexander's article in the Post in 1941, the March 1st issue of the Saturday Evening Post. My good wife had found it, had read it, had thought it would be of some value to me, and had left it open at the right page on the left arm of the chair I sit in today, thinking that when I came in, if I came in, I might read it. And evidently I did. But evidently I was drunk when I read it, and I hadn't remembered one word about it or even thought of it until the morning I came to. And I remembered that I'd read it. And I remembered only two things about it: that drunks helped drunks and didn't drink. And they called it Alcoholics Anonymous. And I said to myself, if I ever live to get out of this bed, I'll find AA. And instantly, my little period of sanity was gone. I was sickened to death, drunk, and insane. And I had a lot of dying to do. But from the very moment of commitment until right now, I have never had a drink or a pill. Such is the great significance of this thing called surrender. Surrender. I would rather be able to tell this audience this morning what it means to surrender than to be president of the universe. This is the most misunderstood experience in human life. This thing called surrender. And you and I both know that in this civilization where we live, surrender is a dirty word. The weak man surrenders, the strong man wins. And that's the reason I never surrendered once in 43 years of life. It was no good. Besides, I got a pretty heavy slug of Cherokee Indian in me. You talk to me about surrender and you're liable to get scalped. You know. So, I can say to you this morning without fear of successful contradiction that the greatest single event in my life, and I've finished my 79th year, the greatest single event in my life was when the bottle surrendered me. Sometime between the Friday before Christmas, 45, and the middle of January, 46. Greatest single event that's ever happened. Because from that day to this, I have never wanted anything for myself. I haven't been going any place. I have had nothing to prove and nothing to win. And I've had the most fabulous life that anybody ever heard tell of. Because in the last 35 years, everything that I beat my brains out to get, according to what I'd been taught at home, church, and school, and I worked hard, and I wasn't a fast buck artist. I wasn't a con artist. I worked hard to get what I thought I was born without. Because I was born in a family that's too poor to paint and too proud to whitewash. And I ended up with nothing. I was always trying to go someplace. You had to be this, have that, and be known as before you could live. They read right out of the good book. You earn your bread by the sweat of your brow, old boy. They read that to me when I was a kid. And I was out there in that salt mine trying to outthink, outperform, and outmaneuver for 30 years. And ended up with nothing. And here, the nothing added up to be the finest thing that ever happened to me. I was surrendered. When I got well enough, I started looking for Alcoholics Anonymous. And I didn't know where to find you. You see, I was out of good drinking time before Alcoholics Anonymous was born. Alcoholics Anonymous was 46 years old, the 10th day of last June. And I am 35 years and 8 months sober. And I had 11 years of periodic drinking before I came. And my 11 years of periodic drinking was sparked by the fact that I was not going to be licked by a bottle. I was going to win. I had to win. And you can't win when you're down on your back. So I had to get well enough to get in the ring for the next round. And I became periodic. So I was out at a good drinking time before Alcoholics Anonymous was born. And when it came time for me to look for you, I didn't know where to look. My keen alcoholic mind told me you wouldn't be in the phone book. You were anonymous, weren't you? They don't anonymous in the phone book. And knowing you weren't there, I never looked. Which is the story of my life. I knew so damn much it wasn't true. I couldn't learn anything that was. So I had to call people and ask them if they knew anybody that knew anybody in AA. And I got a man's name from a doctor in Beverly Hills. He was a motion picture actor. Many of you who are around my age will remember that there was some guy that played a part called Boston Blackie in the old days, and it was that guy that I called. Got his name from a doctor. And I called him up, and we talked a little while. And he says, have you had a drink today? And I said, no. Well, he said, don't take one. He says, I can't take you to meeting tonight because I'm working tonight. But I might not be working tomorrow. And if I'm not working, I'll take you to meeting. So call me tomorrow. So I called him tomorrow, and we talked a little while, and he says, have you had a drink today? And I said, no. He says, don't take one. I'm still working. Call me tomorrow. So I called him tomorrow. And we talked a little bit, and this time I said to him, I know you're still working. And he says, yeah. I says, you don't have to take me to meeting. Where's there a meeting I can go to? And he told me, and it was in 10 minutes to my house. And I determined to go. And I felt pretty good about it until about 10 minutes before time to leave. And then I did the unforgivable thing. I started to think. Now, second to telling you that I love you, I want to tell you this morning, quit thinking. That's why we're all here this morning. We thought when we ought to be doing something. So, I started thinking, and this is what went through my head. Look, son, you've lived in Beverly Hills a long time. And it just might not be good for your reputation to be seen with a bunch of drunks. Now, you will never know how funny that is. Because the only guy in Beverly Hills that ever spent more time in the Beverly Hills jail than I had was the jailer. And here I am concerned about being seen with a bunch of people that were doing something about their drinking, you know. But I sold myself a bill of goods. I decided to go anyway, but I was going to disguise myself pretty good, so I wouldn't be so readily identified. So I got ready and I went to the meeting. It was a great big hall, it was as big as this, and right in the middle of the back wall was an outside door. It was the Veterans of Foreign Wars Hall. And I walked up to that outside door, looked in, and there were about 35 people in the middle of that room. Big room. And here this little bunch of people were right in the middle of the room, and every one of them talking, nobody listening. It's been that way ever since. And I stood at the door looking at you, and it didn't take me long to conclude that I'd been given the wrong information. This was the wrong night. These were the veterans and their wives, and they were gathering there for a party. And I was going to have to leave and come back the night the drunks were there. Because you didn't look like me, you weren't dressed like me, and you didn't feel like me, because it was all happy talk. I couldn't understand the word, but it was all happy talk. I could hear the chatter, and you couldn't be drunks because you wouldn't be chattering like that. So I decided I was going to have to leave and come back the night the drunks were there. And I turned to go. And somebody in the middle of that room had been watching me, and this to me is the essence. This is the very secret of our society. This is the thing that makes this work when almost nothing else does. This guy had been watching me. And when I started to leave, he came running over to the door. And he called after me. He says, "Mister, were you looking for somebody?" And I said, "No, sir." But he says, "What were you looking for then?" And thinking he was a veteran, I said to him, "Well, if it would interest you, sir, I was looking for sobriety." And everything about that man changed just like that. I was hooked before he ever opened his mouth again. It was just like you'd pressed a light switch. He lit up all over. And it was obvious to me that he was glad I was there. And this man I'd never seen before in my life. And my own flesh and blood wouldn't even spit on me. And here's a stranger that's so happy that I'm there that he lights up all over. And I'm hooked. And when he spoke again, this is what he said: "Why, take off your hat and coat. You're in the right place." And he didn't know it, but he just robbed me of my disguise right there. And he took me back in the back and rocked me to sleep. I remember that meeting far better than I remember last night's meeting. And it was a goodie. My goodness, this has been one of the great weekends of my life. You people are wonderful. And it's been a wonderful conference up until now. Like old Buttermilk Smith, he says, this thing's been going good up until now, and he says it'll still go if old Goober here don't foul it up. And he was talking about me. So up until now, it's been awful good. But I remember that first meeting better than last night's meeting. Everything about that meeting is etched, not only in my mind, but in my heart. Because the first thing you told me was, it's the first drink that's killing you. One drink is too many and 1,000 aren't enough. It's the very first drink that's killing you. Now, I thought I was pretty smart. And I'd been drinking for 28 years, and it never occurred to me it was the first drink. I thought it was the last gallon. I was trying to knock it off before the trouble started, you know. And the first thing he said was, it's the first drink that you can't take. One drink's too many and 1,000 aren't enough, he said to me. And I messed with that a little bit and bought it, and I've still got it. The second thing you told me, and I wouldn't take a half of Texas with all the oil wells for this one. You says, today is the day we don't drink. Today is the day we don't drink. If you'd have told me I had to be sober 35 years, I'd drop dead. If you'd have told me 35 days, I'd have dropped dead. But you didn't. You said, today is the day we don't drink. And you went on to say to me, if a day's too long, how about an hour? Can you live an hour without drinking? Make that the length of your life, and then do it again. But don't drink today. And you finished up by saying, regardless of how long you live in Alcoholics Anonymous, never expand that time more than 24 hours. That's your lifetime in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I bought it, and I've still got it. And it's the second greatest lesson I've ever learned. This is a fantastic thing. Today's the day we don't drink. And it's the length of your life. Second greatest lesson I ever learned. And I thought for a long time that we of Alcoholics Anonymous had figured that out. But when I got to go into meetings, I listened to you people say the Lord's Prayer. And there was a line there someplace that says, give us this day our daily bread. And don't say a thing about 2 crusts to wake up on tomorrow morning. And I decided that somebody a long time ago knew about this 24 hours a day, you know. But it's great, and I'm going to stop just a minute because of a thing that happened to me a year and a half ago, a little more than that. I was sitting home, and I got a call from a nephew of mine from South Carolina, my oldest brother, one of his sons. And he says, Uncle Chuck, he says, I'm getting goddamn tired of having to get drunk every night. I fell out of my chair. What a thing, you know. He didn't say getting drunk every night. He says, I'm getting goddamn tired of having to get drunk every night. And I knew he was ready. And then he said to me, I tried to find Alcoholics Anonymous, but couldn't find it. And I was just came that close to saying, son, if you knew how to spell it, you could find it. But I caught myself just in time. And I said, well, I tell you something, boy. When we get through talking, don't get up. Just sit right where you are. And we'll have you surrounded and nothing flat. And we talked a little while and hung up. And I immediately called the chap that many of you have heard. He's an ex-basketball player and basketball coach and an ex-delegate and an ex-trustee from North Carolina. And his name's Dave C. And I called Dave and caught him. And I told him my little conversation. And he says, man, he says, I know everybody in Buford. And he says, he sure is going to be surrounded in nothing flat. And he was. And he and his wife spent 3 days with us, Miss C and I, down in South Georgia, St. Simon's Island, this year. And he's never had a drink since that night. It's fantastic. Beautiful, beautiful thing. He's coming up for 2 years now without a drink. So, having to get drunk every night, you know. And that's what we've been freed from. Anyway, 24-hour day. This is my life. I have no past. I want no future. The next thing you told me is stay close to us. Get into as many meetings as you can. Because, said you, there's more wisdom in this room about your problem and its answer than in any other room on the face of the earth. So get into as many meetings as you can. And I bought that. And I've still got it. I've attended nearer 5 than 4 meetings a week for 35 years and 8 months, and I've never attended one too many. You might say, how do you know? It's very simple. I never had it so good. This is the only easy life I've ever known, the only good life that's ever been mine in my entire lifetime. And I'm not about to change a winning formula. I'll be attending these meetings until you pat me in the face with a scoop. And I'll be loving it. Because I not only love you people, I love the program. So I'll be coming as long as I'm around. The next thing you told me is the only intellectual knowledge that you and I need that we didn't have when we got here. Because this isn't a program of great knowledge. And it isn't a program of great ability. It's a program of attitude and effort. Attitude and effort. But it's good to know why we can't drink like other people. You told me about the allergy of the body and the obsession of the mind. You told me that some of us could not successfully handle alcohol from the physical angle. That one drink was too many and 1,000 weren't enough. That we had to find a way not to take the first drink because it was the first drink that was killing us. And I played with it a while and bought it. And I've still got that. And then you told me about the obsessions of the mind. The reason that we have to take the first drink. So it was the allergy of the body and the obsessions of the mind. And you told me that there was nothing we could do about the allergy of the body. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. But we could, by the application of this program of ours, be rid of the obsession that makes us take the first drink. And I bought that, and I've still got it. And it's a fantastic thing, as I told you in the beginning. I've lived from that night till this without one conscious desire for a drink. It's fantastic. Now, I've already told you that the things that I beat my brains out to get and ended up without have come into my life. in these last 35 years. And I never tried at all to make them come about as I had tried for 43 years. And I want to just tell you how I started, and then I'm going to quit. The first person that I talked with after I got able to talk was my wife. She was divorcing me, and it was all right. It was all right. I had it coming, and I knew it. So I called my wife in, and I says, honey, it's no longer of any consequence to me whether or not I live under this roof. It is of absolutely no importance to me at all. I'll never ask a thing of you as long as the two of us live but one. If I ever have anything that'll add to your life, let me give it to you. And we closed the book, and it's never been reopened. I called the two boys in, and I says, boys, there's no father in the household any longer. You don't need to love me, you don't need to respect me, and you don't need to obey me. I'll never ask a thing of you as long as the two of us live but one. If I ever have anything that'll add to your life, let me give it to you. And we closed the book. And it's never been reopened. And as soon as I was able, I went down to that office, knowing that the man was going to show me through the window. But you see, he'd paid me for something I hadn't done. And I had to go down there. And I went. And he saw my old car in the parking lot, and he knew I was on the premises, and he knew I wasn't going to stay. So he busted in my office like a bull in a china closet. And I couldn't have defended myself with a shotgun, because I didn't have the shakes, I had the leaps. So all I could do was sit there and say, Victor, leave me alone. I don't work for you anymore. I'm down here to clean up this desk. I'm here to do the things you paid me for last year that I didn't do. And as soon as I get even with you, I'll get the hell out of here on my own power. And you'll never owe me a penny as long as you live, but for God's sake, leave me alone. I've got to get even with you. And he stopped in his tracks. And he said to me, what the hell's happened to you, Charlie? And I said, don't know. And I didn't. But he didn't throw me through the window. And I sat down at the same desk that I'd hated, doing the same job that I'd hated, for the same boss that I'd hated. And there was only one thing changed: the motivation. I sat down there to get even with the boss man because he'd paid me for something I hadn't done. "11 years later, I bought that business. Absolutely impossible. And when I sold it, I was a rich man. Never tried to get rich. I was rubbing out a record. And you can't rub out a record thinking I want or don't want or like or don't like. You rub out a record by doing something for somebody without a price tag on it. And this is AA. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope one with another, that they might solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. Caring and sharing is the thing that makes this thing work. So, that part of it worked out pretty good. I've already told you that my wife and I have had 56 years in double harness. And today, our house house as a home. It's beautiful. Those boys that wouldn't even come home find excuses to come. And it's beautiful. And we're a family. My health has been remarkably good. And I was a sorry, sorry thing, health-wise, when I found you. So I am convinced that the other book is right when it says, "Fear not, little flock. It's the Father's good pleasure to give us the kingdom." When it says, "Take no thought of the morrow, what you shall eat, what you shall drink, or wherewithal you shall be clothed. Your heavenly Father knoweth what you have need of before you ask him." When it says, "Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They toil not, neither do they spin. And yet I say unto you that even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these." Now that means to me, when you and I get tired enough of being tired and sick enough of being sick, that we're willing to do things as right as we know how, because we want to, we find out that all of those things are true. Everything that St. Francis talked about in that prayer of his, I believe. Not because he said it, but because it happened to me. It's happened to me. And it's fantastic, because I didn't come here even for permanent sobriety, just to find out how not to drink today so I could use the time rubbing out a record. I highly recommend this thing. And now with this I'm going to close. The last several years I haven't been going to the office anymore. I've been retired. And I've had a lot of time to look at you and me and other things. And I have been converting intellectual knowledge into conscious awareness for the last 10 years. And I've had a picnic. I've had a picnic because everything that I know today that's pertinent to my well-being, I intellectually knew over 50 years ago. Everything that I believe now that's pertinent to my well-being, I believed intellectually over 50 years ago. But it wasn't mine. I hadn't converted it into conscious awareness. So I sit there and play with these things. And I find myself swimming with a salmon from the headwaters of the Klamath River down to the ocean and over to Japan and back, and then swimming up that same river to the headwaters to spawn and to die. Now they do that all the time, those salmon. And I say to myself, who's the travel agent? Where's the guide? Because I get lost in the airport. I head out the freeway and there's a sign every 60 feet and I get lost. And those salmon go clear to China and back, to Japan and back. And then I get to thinking a little bit about a phenomenon right there in my own town almost. I Capistrano. There's a mission down there. And every St. Joseph's Day, the swallows show up there. Almost on the minute. And they winter in Venezuela. Who's their travel agent? Almost on the minute they show up there. Every year. And I see without any question that God's idea of a salmon includes everything necessary for its complete fulfillment. That God's idea of a swallow or a redwood tree includes everything necessary for its complete fulfillment. And yet I had to live for many, many, many years before I was willing to do the things that are so beautifully set down for us in other books. And I have found that when we get simple enough to walk in His way with Him, that all these things happen in our lives. And I'm so grateful I can't see. I cry a lot. I cry a lot because these things just bowl me over. And the nearest thing that I've ever run into to living like a salmon or a swallow is our beautiful fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. I love it, and I love you. God bless you. Thanks.
Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. And that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes. You can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.